So hello everyone, you are watching Qriouscube. So in this video we are going to understand the semiconductor chip shortage, which has taken a global exposure at this moment of time, and it's really important that we as an individual get interested in that. And I was just trying to think what is the exact scenario which is going on in India, and after finding out a lot of articles, here is the video. So without a further delay, let's start करते हैं. So first of all, let me make you understand why this semiconductor actually matters us. So semiconductors are the brain of this modern day electronics. Consumer products like smartphones, smart TVs to more sophisticated equipment used in industrial applications, defense and aerospace. Apart from that, artificial intelligence, 5G, and the advancement in the automotive industry covering electric vehicles, autonomous driving and safety standards have led to a surge in demand for microcontrollers, sensors and the memory chips. So now let's talk about its geopolitical importance. So the economics of the semiconductor supply chain makes it a vital geopolitical tool. Manufacturing facilities, equipment and materials are concentrated in a handful of countries. Consequently, nation states can deny their competition access to parts of the supply chain because of the geopolitical objectives. That is why semiconductor has become a major front in the US-China trade war. Moreover, Taiwan remains the most significant bottleneck in the global semiconductor supply chain. Cyber attacks and corporate espionage by China on Taiwan semiconductor companies have increased. A hostile Chinese takeover can no longer be dismissed as a remote possibility. That is why the geopolitical risks for disruption are too high to ignore. So the next one is this economic importance. So today the semiconductor industry contributes about 2.3 trillion of the world GDP. It contributes to the both upstream and the downstream movement. So because of this globalization, countries specialize in different parts, relying on different competitive advantage to lower cost efficiencies. For example, in COVID-19, a semiconductor chip shortage crippled the autonomous industry and wiped off nearly $60 billion. So it is important that we just safeguard this economic interest with resilience and carry forward the semiconductor industry with a more number of, or we just have to diversify this semiconductor industry. So now let's talk about this semiconductor market 2022. Semiconductors can broadly be divided into four categories. ICs, example are Qualcomm Snapdragon chip; optoelectronics, example this LEDs; discrete components, example the rectifiers; and sensors, which are used in image sensor for cameras. Of these four, ICs account for 83%. These ICs can further be divided into four categories: memory, logic, analog and micro. So with this overwhelming importance of this part, so the next video will be covering the strength, production, weaknesses of India in this market share. Now let's talk about the semiconductor value chain. So producing a semiconductor IC is a complex process. So it can be broadly divided into 5 stages. First one is the research and development. This pre-production efforts to increase processing capability and speed at a reduced cost. The focus is on surpassing the physical limits of semiconductor material which are being developed till today. And it is highly capital intensive. 25% of the sales value are being given on this segment. Next one is the production state, where design, manufacturing, assembling and testing stage comes into play. So when we talk about design, it is a highly skill intensive, and it requires access to design softwares, and these companies are known as the fabless. Okay, and the third next comes the manufacturing stage, which is highly capital intensive, and it requires access to manufacturing equipments, chemicals and wafer facilities need to constantly upgrade facilities as per technological advancement. So these companies are named as fab or foundry. Third, and the next comes the assembly and the testing, which is a highly labor intensive, less reliant on tech, high volume, less margin, and for that reason creating wafer level packaging. And this was the end of the production stage. And finally the end is the distribution, where finished semiconductors are sold to the OEMs like Apple, device making companies, for use in the electronic goods, and therefore requires, and this entire system requires an efficient logistic network. So that was it for the semiconductor IC value chain. So given the complexity and the resultant cost of this IC production, no country is self-sufficient in semiconductors. Instead, semiconductor power specialize in certain parts of the value chain. A typical semiconductor production process spans 4+ countries, 3+ trips around the world, 2,500 miles travel, and 12 days in transit, just to reach the entire, or just to make the simple wafer in semiconductor. So it's a huge process. So that was it for this first video, and in the next video we are going to understand what is the actual scenario in India, and what are the advantages, disadvantages, and apart from that, government is also taking different type of, or launching different type of schemes by which the companies, foreign companies could get interested and they start building their firms in India. So we would look at in the next one.